I have a set of Super 35 lenses. This is a 20mm T1 on my FX30, and I'm just gonna test. It's a set of 3 lenses. It's a 20mm, a 35mm, and a 50mm. I just want to have them in a controlled environment like this. Look at the bokeh a little bit, look at the flaring, look at them at different T-stops. When it comes to cinematography, I think probably the most underrated thing that you can do is your own testing. When you're on set, it's not really the best time to be fiddling around with gear, trying to figure it out, trying to try new things. I do have a lot of the head knowledge, so I can just in my head say, this is what this is doing, this is why this works, etc. But nothing beats testing. So that's what I'm doing today. So the lenses are called Zhongyi. I think I'm pronouncing that right, I'm not sure. I think they were like $1,200 for all 3 lenses. I really like them. They have a ton of character to them. They're obviously very fast. They have some cool flaring to them. I have not been able to use them much because my FX3 is really my workhorse, and lately I do a lot of solo content, so autofocus is a must, but I really wanted to just familiarize myself with these lenses. So here's the 20mm. I do have Christmas lights back here, so my shutter is at 86 degrees, so I wouldn't get flicker. And I didn't want to add ND to mess with the characteristics of the lens itself. I am at ISO 800, 4400 Kelvin. My key light and fill light are balanced to 3200 Kelvin, and my backlight is 5600 Kelvin for a little mixed temperature. And the LUT that I'm using is a custom LUT, which hopefully will be available to everyone soon. It's a custom film emulation LUT with a -1 stop adjustment to it. Now let's get close focus. So this thing can get very close focus, which is kind of cool. It's I really like this 20mm on a Super 35 sensor. A lot of Steven Spielberg's movies are Super 35, and he uses a 20mm quite often. It's a great sort of neutral, flexible focal length. It's kind of similar to using like a 35mm on a full frame. All right, let's stop this down. Let's take a look at this at like T2. So this is the same lens at T2, and my shutter is at 210. So there's probably a little more motion blur there. Let's check out close focus. T2. That focus is a little more forgiving, obviously. We kind of lose some of that eyelash flare. Oh, T4. I'm not gonna go any further than this. I really like that look. It kind of has almost like a 16mm look to it. And that's why it's important to test in a controlled environment like this, because you can see the variables that you're adjusting. If you're trying different things in variable situations, variable lighting, etc., you can't quite pinpoint, is it your lens, is it your lighting, etc. So it's good to do tests in a controlled environment. This is T4. I like that look. And so what's nice about this, again, to the Steven Spielberg reference, is that when you're at T4, you're not getting that like Joker, Dune, super shallow depth of field, obviously, especially not on a Super 35 sensor, but you're able to have more flexibility with the blocking and the focus pulling. And it just gives it a different look. I feel like everything now is kind of large format, shallow depth of field. So it's nice to have something a little bit closer, almost to a 16mm look where you have a deep depth of field. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the 35mm. Okay, so this is the 35mm at T1. Wow. This is very dreamlike. Obviously, I'm not flagging any of this flaring. It's very over the top. The bokeh is insane. I'm sure my eyes are barely in focus, but this is an interesting look. This is a very dreamy look that I don't know, I like it a lot. It's interesting. What's crazy is I was just using the 20mm and I had a 300 watt light at 70%. when I was stopped down to T4. Now that I'm at T1, I now have the light at 0.03%. So that gives you an idea how much light T1 brings in. But let's stop it down to T2. Yeah, so now my light's at 56%. So that's kind of the fun thing about these lenses, is you have the option for extremely shallow, dreamlike depth of field and to bring in a ton of light if you need to, but you get a lot of sort of frayed edges and chromatic aberration. There's a lot of sort of lens halation coming off the edges when you are open that much. So I think that this lens really sings closer to T2 rather than T1. So this is 35mm at T2. Let's get some close focus going on. Yeah, okay, here we go. This is as close as it gets. It's a great look though. It's almost like putting a diopter on a FX3 or a full frame sensor. Let me throw the focus back. Let's go to T4. So this is something interesting to talk about. You can see I just lost so much light. I had to bring up my light, my 300 watt light, to 100%, and I changed the shutter angle back to 180. You can see it's still dark. I mean, my face is like barely exposed, and it just gives you an idea why lighting in movies looks so different now, because of lighting ratios. Just to get an exposure, let's say you're shooting super 35mm, and let's just say your film is rated at 500. Well, you can see how much light that requires, and when you bring in more light, you get stronger contrast ratios, stronger contrast, and thus a more defined image rather than sort of these softer images like you might see in like Skeleton Crew, for instance. Okay, now let's switch to our final lens, which is a 50mm. Okay, this is the 85. I'm gonna work my way backwards this time. I'm starting at T4, and then I'll work my way up to T1, and then I'm gonna push it back a little bit further so it's not my face in a giant close-up. So let's go up to T2. Let me adjust. I'm gonna get rid of this flare. Okay, T2. Really nice clean bokeh. Great contrast. It's not like overly crispy in contrast like photo lenses are. There's something about the motion in the optics of cine lenses versus photo lenses that is just so nice. All right, let's go to T1. Let me adjust. Yeah, so it's really hard to even just get me in focus, but you can see what I was talking about earlier of just this weird kind of blurry halation on the edges. Pretty much unusable for any straightforward project, but if you were going for something kind of dreamy, or perhaps going for like a vintage 70s look, for instance, I could see this working, but it is certainly overkill. It kind of reminds me actually of like some of Kubrick's films, like Barry Lyndon. I think he used like NASA lenses. I think they were close to T1, maybe less, maybe more, but they had similar sort of aberration and fringing going on there. So it's a bit much. I prefer stop down, obviously, but to have the option is pretty cool. Now let me back up the camera. Yeah, I just want to get kind of a wider field of view here. Am I in focus? Yes. So that's the 85 at T1. Let's go back to T2. Take a look. Okay, we are at T2. Let me decrease the light. Very nice. Some of this I'm gonna have to look at on my computer, unless I can connect here. I might have to switch to an iPhone because all these cinematography apps, they just hate Android. It's sad. I've been Team Pixel for a while here. I really love Google Pixel, but their camera stinks on the latest version. These camera apps, I can never connect to the camera, no matter what. I can never connect to them. Drives me insane. There we go. Let's take a look at T5.6 here. Gonna have to bump up the ISO, which I don't really like to do. Again though, it's kind of that interesting 16 mil look. I don't know, if you're wanting to do something different in this space, this might be the way to go, because I feel like everyone is kind of doing that large format look. So, food for thought. I feel a little guilty saying this because I know a lot of people love the FX30 and it's a great option. And for me, it's been a perfectly great little B cam. I like that I can put lenses like this on it, but it gets some really awful chromatic noise. And 2500, ISO 2500 is supposed to be its second base, and it is just like pretty much unusable. Honestly, like ISO 400 is, you don't get the most dynamic range, but it's the sweet spot for like a clean image. Right around there, you wouldn't know the difference between FX30 and a FX3. But yeah, once you're 800, which is the native, the lower end of the native and above, it just gets really just ugly, mushy, chromatic noise. And you know, the FX3 and sort of that generation of cameras was finally the move away from that. I think the FX30 is a great value camera, 100%. I mean, it's so cheap. And there are so many instances, well-lit instances or controlled instances like this. Nice lenses, it's fantastic. Yeah, I don't know. I've just found it's not the cleanest image, so that's a little disappointing. I'm gonna switch back to the 20mm from here. I wanna see how that looks. Okay, so we're back on the 20mm. Let's stop back down 800. Let's go to T2. Too much. I love this lens. I love this focal length. It has that like full frame field of view, but it doesn't have that like full frame look because of the depth of field. Now let's open up to let's do T1.4, see how fringy it gets. We're a little hot, so let me adjust my light. Too much. That's my favorite thing to say now from Gladiator 2, which was not great. So that's T1.4. I'm looking at this on a tiny monitor, but it doesn't seem to be super kind of halation-y on the edges. It seems pretty clean. It looks really nice. I like that. I like it a lot. Gosh, the stupid light. Get out of here. T1.4. Not bad. I mean, you look at this compared to like a Tamron autofocus lens, which I use all the time on my FX3, and there's just this like beautiful clarity to this. There's something about the contrast and the fall off from the darks to the lights that is just so smooth and like it's glassy, you know, like it sounds pretentious when people say glass, but you can almost see the glassiness. I don't know, 20mm on this FX30, that might be my new jam. I love the way this looks. Some of it's the lighting too. I mean, I'm doing kind of a classic movie lighting here. So yeah, anyways, a lot of this is just kind of observing on the fly, looking at lenses. I highly recommend doing this. You get a better sense for your lighting. I do this all the time with lighting, of just testing, and I want to document it more. I figured if I'm going to be doing these tests, why not just record them and throw them on YouTube for the nerds? I learn a lot from these, even from this test that I just did. I feel like I've gotten to know these lenses a little bit better, and I can't wait to sort of look at them on my computer. Hopefully you've been able to at least observe something and pull something from it. Again, these are the Zhongji. This is not sponsored by them. They didn't send them to me. I bought them. They're very cheap. I will link them in my description though, if you're interested. And I've got a couple more videos coming out this month. I finally am like freed up from work stuff to do more YouTube, which I am so excited for because I love doing YouTube videos. I've got one more video coming out about my short film Real Time. If you have not seen my short film Real Time, guys, this is what it's all about for me. It's all about making narrative films. If you like this channel and you want to support it, the best thing you can do is watch my narrative films and let me know what you think. If you hate it, love it, want to argue about time travel, I welcome it all. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.